Today's guest understands the power of voice and story. She transforms lives, not just on stage, but also for the women she mentors. Sam Chittenden led in the public sector for 20 years before becoming the artistic director of Different Theatre. She's an award-winning playwright, director, and poet. Her works highlight women's experiences and challenge common ideas about leadership. But what sets Sam apart is her gift for making learning creative and personal. As director of training at Mentors for Women, she combines artistry and emotional intelligence to help women discover their confidence, true voice, and vision. She guides them to create their own paths with courage, honesty, and touch of poetic rebellion. Sam, what brought you to Mentors for Women? Was there a moment when you felt, I want to do this?
Yes, what is really a who. Diane Fabian, the founder, brought me to Mentors for Women. We worked together on a personal development program that we've both been quite involved with, the Mastery of Self-Expression. And it was after one of those events where Diane began to have the idea of creating Mentors for Women. I've worked as a mentor and as a mentor trainer for a number of years. So it just felt like a sweet spot when Diane contacted me and said, I want to do this thing. What do you think? Would you like to be involved? It was a no-brainer for me.
I love that, not the what, but the who.
Yeah.
Very important perspective.
And so often that's true, isn't it? The moments in our lives that change us are so much about who are the people that we meet along the way rather than the organization or the environment.
And also if you look at it from the different direction, is who you are being to others.
Which part of you you're leading with, you're bringing into the room, who inspires us.
What do you think makes Mentors for Women different from other groups helping women grow? Is there something special you notice in the way Mentors for Women works with women?
Yeah, I think there's a particular ethos. So Mentors for Women is established as an organization, a network created by women for women. And I think that's really important. It's a network, an opportunity for development and growth rather than purely, it's not purely a commercial organization, although clearly it needs to work on commercial grounds. But it's fundamentally a space where women can support each other and all women can grow, including the mentors. We're really passionate about helping anybody who wants to become a mentor or build their mentoring skills to grow as a part of the organization, as well as the mentees, the women that we provide support to.
You just mentioned women supporting women. Do you feel that there is that transition necessary for many women who enter Mentors for Women to go from that competitive edge to actually seeing that when I'm supporting, I get supported and we all win?
I think it's one of the big myths around leadership development and leadership in general is that there's a cake of a certain size and we need to divide it up and we want to get the biggest bit. I think if we support each other and help each other, it benefits everybody. We build better organizations, better teams, a better world in the end, if we can provide that hand up. And I think that's one of the things that characterizes women working together. It's not exclusive, but women working together in leadership settings. I think if we can overcome the myth we have to compete with each other, we have to stab other people in the back, you have to hold secrets. I think that's a kind of classic thing in leadership development, can be that you have unique information that gives you a competitive edge, a competitive strength. And there'll be settings where that's true. But I think in the main, the more information we share, the more we put all of our brains together, because two heads are better than one. And in a room that's trying to make difficult decisions, empowering everybody around the table to be able to contribute their best thinking is going to help everyone to do better.
Instead of thinking that there's one pie and I need to make sure that I get my slice, is actually creating a bigger pie altogether.
Yeah, I work in the theatre a lot, and in that kind of environment, there's not really a lot of room for ego and competitiveness when you're trying to create a theatrical piece, a performance, ego and that just don't go very well together. And there's no one person in the room who can do it on their own. It's a team effort. Everybody has to be involved. And if we kind of respect that and learn, we each have our different strengths. We bring that to the table. As a director, I can't do my job without a cast, and they can't do their job without me.
Absolutely. No one is self-made. Even if we
No.
need to put our effort in, no one is self-made.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so important to try and work in environments where we have what feels like our tribe around us, where we have that support around us. If we've chosen a field where that's rare, or we're just in a particular organization where there doesn't feel that there's that support, then we need to seek it elsewhere. And I think that's where Mentors for Women can be a really powerful ally for women.
Can you tell me about a mentoring moment you will never forget? Is there a story from a mentee or a mentor that changed how you see mentoring?
Yeah, I think this is a really difficult question to answer. Every time I think of one, I think, oh, yes, but then there's this person, then there's this person. When I was reflecting on this question, what actually came up for me is that there are themes that come up time and time again in mentoring. The two things are when I have felt most impactful as a mentor, when I felt somebody's got the most out of it, it has either been where I have helped somebody to reconnect with the reason they do what they do. And I think that's where mentoring in particular can be, powerful. In contrast, say, with coaching or another support where people don't necessarily have a shared experience. I grew up in research, in engineering. I've worked as an NHS leader. I moved into freelance work, and now I work also in a creative space. So I've had these sort of different moments in my career. And whenever I've felt that real impact, it's been helping somebody to, why did I go into science? What was it about? Because it feels so hard, and I've lost touch with what it was I'm here for. And so really helping somebody to re-identify for themselves what it is about the field that they work in that they're absolutely passionate about, and re-finding their purpose and their meaning in that. And I think that's where, for me, storytelling and theatre and performance really helps, because a story is all about finding the purpose, finding our purpose as actors in our lives. So it's either that, or it is remembering who we are, who we want to be, and what it is that we bring. They're two sides of the same coin, because if joy in our work is where we find that sweet spot between what we do and who we are, that's the area we want to get to. Sometimes, to be honest, it's been helping somebody to realize that they're in the wrong place. That's not always easy, but to have a mentoring conversation where at the end somebody decides this isn't for me, it's no longer the best fit for me, I need to go and find something else to do, and then helping them to think about what that other thing might be.
What emerges for me is that the awareness that you're facilitating. And what I loved about your share is that there are actually themes, so that from all the mentoring experiences that you have as a mentee or mentor, you are able
Yeah.
to still those themes. And what I specifically loved, it almost sounds like you're saying that we are the playwriters or our own story, and we are also the main characters, so we can choose our role in that play.
Yeah. And we can choose, and all of us are different things to different people in our lives. So we're not monolithic and just one thing, one way of being. We're different with our children, to our parents, to our lovers, to our work colleagues. So it doesn't mean that we're pretending. I think this is important, because great acting on theatre is not about pretending. Because if somebody stands up on stage and pretends to be something, we don't believe them. Sanford Meisner, who's one of the great acting teachers, calls it telling the truth in imaginary circumstances. So it's about finding what's the core of me that I recognize in the character whose story I'm telling right now. And when that works, that core connects with the core in the audience member. We see that when we're moved by theatre, it's because we can imagine being in that situation. We can feel a little bit of that joy or that grief or that anger. We connect with that who they are, to have confidence in being ourselves. We come back to who am I at the core, and which aspect of that do I want to be in this moment? So what is the most helpful thing for me and the people around me to channel, that's the right word, and to be really conscious about. So I think strong leaders, great leaders are really conscious about who they are being in any moment and really confident that what the organization needs, what the team needs is them, who they are. You've been selected for a role because of your skills, your strengths, your personality. And then what can happen is that organizational culture turns that down, turns down the volume on who we are. And we try and fit in. So we end up hiding the very thing that the organization most needs, which is art at our best, in our power.
When women feel that they have to somehow mask or adjust who they are, or maybe even copy others to fit in, how do you help people show who they really are or be who they feel that they are, even when it feels hard?
Yeah, I think some of that fundamentally comes down to confidence and believing in ourselves and believing that the thing that we're bringing is what's needed in the organization, that there's a power in that. But I think it might start by taking a little step back and helping people to be really clear about, to answer the question, who am I? What is it about me? Who am I? Where do I feel confident? What helps me? And what helps me to stay in contact with that? So there might be all sorts of little things that we do in the mentoring conversation that helps people to identify it, to remember it under times of stress, because that's one of the things that can happen. We can lose ourselves because of everything else that's going on. There's a lot of playfulness in the way I might work with somebody. We might be thinking about images that help, or little words. Which version of you do you want to be? I want to be the, I don't know, the oak tree version of me in this moment. I have a sense I want to be strong, but I want to be able to flex with what's going on. I use a lot of different ways to think about imagery and reminders of what people want so that they can come back to that source, come back to being grounded and clear for themselves. And then I think it's about consciously thinking what's needed in the room now. And if the classic would be, you've got a room full of people who look the same, talk the same, sound the same, all in their nice grey suits with grey hair, whatever feels like it's the kind of the cultural norm. And more of the same is not going to change anything. So there's something about really instilling the belief that something needs to change and I can do that. But to do it and I think this is where safety comes in. We wear masks to keep ourselves safe. We learn this from very small, that if we behave in a certain way, we'll get criticized or laughed at. We learn to moderate the way that we are. And there'll be a playing out of our behavior at 100% full volume that won't get us what we want or need. Equally, playing at 0% of who we really are is not going to change anything. So there's a spot in the middle. And I think, again, this is where in mentoring sessions, there's an opportunity to play and rehearse and try things out and say, what would happen? So imagine what would happen in that meeting if you were to say this thing or that thing, or try it on. Let's have a play. What words might you use that are going to help you to get your message heard rather than dismissed, if that's your experience? So it's a very conscious, measured way of trying things out and playing, but with a very clear intention of being true to who we are and making a difference.
What I love about that it's multi-layered. So it's about within yourself and then in interaction in a safe environment with someone else, like with your mentor. And then also thinking of the culture of the workplace, for example. What are the boundaries? What is safe there? And not to overstretch there either. What came up to me, I used to be confident doing certain things earlier, but I don't feel confident anymore. Maybe it's also a little bit related to, do I want to do that anymore? No. So the confidence is gone. So what are your thoughts about that? Yes, I do believe that essence of us, but then the wants and confident and that type of things, they seem to change quite a lot through the phases and seasons of life.
Definitely. Like, so I can remember when I went through menopause, I found my confidence very knocked, and it took a while to realize what was going on and to find support around that. So I think that if we're working with women, that's definitely going to be a factor when we through childbirth, after the phases of our life, the phases of women's life are particularly fluctuating, aren't they? That's definitely something that we're aware of within Mentors for Women and need to find ways to respond to. But I think also one of the things I've found as I've become more experienced and older is I have less tolerance for situations that I feel aren't serving me. As a younger woman, I might have been quite forthright in wanting to challenge things and make changes and do it in a particular way. And nowadays, I take a different tack. So I certainly have a more kind of collaborative, collegiate approach to things, to getting change. So I might be instead looking for where my allies are, where can I influence in different settings. But I've taken myself out of some settings that don't serve me anymore, that I think I'm no longer the right person to be fighting this battle or making these changes. So I think there's that something about that self-awareness as we change.
Specifically loved what you said is that, that no need to tolerate things anymore. So it's like having that awareness and consciousness about your personal boundaries, but you don't need to be overly violent or aggressive to defend them. You can do it in a way that it's firm, done in a nice way. It doesn't strain relationships, for example.
Yeah. So that is that assertiveness and clarity. And I think sometimes we can tell the truth, but we don't have to do that in a challenging way. We can call it out. It was the phrase that came up to me when you were talking about certain behaviors. We can call it out. And if particularly we have allies within an organization, we can take that risk. I don't think this is the right approach. I don't think you should be speaking in that way, behaving in that way.
Everything what you say is about how to use creativity and story in your work. But can you add something about how using creativity and story help a woman find and speak with a true voice?
So I think some of the things we've been talking about in terms of character or who am I, who do I want to be in this is entirely aligned to thinking about storytelling, thinking about character. Who's the heroine of this story? What's the journey that she's going to go on? How do we reinvent that? What are the challenges, the demons we might face along the way, or the tasks that we're set with? So human beings are natural storytellers. We tell story to help us make sense of our world, to create meaning, to know who we are, to know where we fit. So I think it's a very small leap from that idea around make-believe stories to the way we want to tell the story of who we are. And I think that's why when you ask me a question, for example, can I, about an example of something, my natural tendency is to find parallels and meaning and purpose, so patterns in things that happen. I think that's what storytelling does. So I think helping a woman to reflect on who she is, and then to reflect on, so what's going on here? What's the story of this situation, where we're trying to get to, and what's likely to happen in between time? So it's a kind of classic narrative arc, we would say, in storytelling, the things we're going to face along the way. One of the things it enables us to do is to stand back from the situation. So when sometimes our situation can feel really impossible, if we can step back from it and ask, so what's going on here? What's true right now? What do we want to be true? And who needs to do what to get there? It's a retelling a story.
I love that. And also, when you're creating the story, there's always the future of it, so that you're at the same time also imagining the future you.
Yes, and we talk about making a difference in organizations, making a difference for ourselves. It's all about change, finding positive change. What's the direction of travel? And we don't have to do all of that in one go. We take the first step, don't we?
Mm.
The first step on that journey, so long as we have a sense of because other things will happen in the meantime. We probably won't get where we thought we were going to go because the environment will change, situations change. But so long as we're heading in the right direction to begin with, yeah. It's imagining a future self and a future scenario and then walking towards it. That lovely thing about behaving as if. No, so that's a kind of lovely imaginative thing. I want to do this thing. I want to make this change in my organization, and it's just impossible. And nobody talks in the way that we need to. Nobody does this and nobody does that. So if we ask somebody to behave as if you believed that people were going to respond positively to your proposal, what would you do? If I thought I would be successful in this job application, I'd apply for the job. I wouldn't spend the whole time telling myself I'm not going to. So behaving as if, which is make believe in a way, it's imagine how things would be if you did this. The art of leadership, of leading others, is to bring them with you on that journey, isn't it? So is to tell a story within your organization of here's where we're trying to get to. Come with me, you can play this role, you can play this role, but it's a mission that we're on together.
Talking about leadership, is there an old rule about women's leadership or mentoring that you think we should let go?
Yeah. I think we've touched on one, which is this whole thing about competing. So I think that's really important. I think it's also really important to do away with the idea that in order to be successful in a man's world or a world where there's an imbalance, a gender or any kind of imbalance, that we have to behave like the majority in order to be successful. Because I think the danger is we lose our unique strengths if we try to fit in. So I think that's important to do away with. But I also think around mentoring, if we look at traditional models of mentoring, it's been very much you find a mentor who is a senior person within your organization. They take you under their wing and they try and mold you into a mini version of them. That's what mentoring or sponsorship used to be like. And of course, then we end up with everybody promoting the people who look like us, ending up with more of the same. So I think a much healthier, more modern approach to mentoring is very much more personalized. It's flexible, so you might need a certain kind of mentoring at this point in your life, but then maybe your biggest challenge is managing a transition. So the mentor you most need is somebody who's done really well at managing transition, not somebody who is in sector A or sector B. So I think mentoring needs to be more flexible, and it's not about finding a role model, one person who you can look up to and copy or believe that you're like them. It's drawing from all different sources, the kind of the richness of support that's around. That's certainly what's worked for me.
It's a network of wisdom, and you collect what suits you, even if it doesn't, you're aware of it.
Yeah. And I think also being aware when a particular mentoring relationship is no longer the right thing. So we mentors for women will offer a short period of mentoring, so 3 sessions generally, after which you can review and see whether you want to carry on with that mentor, find a different mentor who's got a different skill set. So I think that adaptability is really important.
If you think about mentors for women 10 years from today, what do you hope has changed for women who join Mentors for Women?
Yeah, I think it will depend on what women come for, won't it? But my feeling would be that women would feel satisfied in the roles that they're performing. They would feel that they fit within the organization that they're in. If there's been a point on their mentoring journey where they've decided this isn't for me, we've supported them to move and find a different sector, a different place to be. I think we will have a strong, vibrant network of women who are mentoring each other, supporting each other, and being mentored and able to find the right support at the right time. We're collecting feedback from both our mentees and mentors around what's needed. So I think the organisation will continue to adapt and flex as it grows to provide exactly what that looks like. So who knows what mentoring will look like in 10 years' time and what women will most want. I hope that some of the conversations around balance, around pay gap, gender, about diversity within the workplace will have shifted, that we'll be in a different world to the one we're in now. But I think that Mentors for Women, because of the way it's designed, will be able to adapt and grow to meet different needs.
I love when organizations and systems are designed to develop, to renew, so that they are flexible and they can grow and evolve as needed.
Yeah, and we're growing our internal training and development program that we have. Mentors can join at any level, from no experience of mentoring all the way through to women who've been mentoring for years. There'll be a place where they can join and continue to be developed and stretched. So the network will grow with the organisation and with the women that we're supporting.
So what is the big message? I know there's a lot, but if you need to choose one, the big message you want women to hear from Mentors for Women, what is it?
So I think around Mentors for Women itself, I think because of all the things we've talked about, that support, about that adaptability, I think there's something for everyone within our organisation. So join us would be my big message. I think we've got a huge amount to offer women at all stages in their career and all levels of interest around mentoring. There's support and a network available for you here. So come and try it out and bring your daughters and your sisters and your colleagues.
What is the one message you want every woman listening to remember?
I just want all of us to remember our wonderful uniqueness and the strengths that we can bring to each other and to the world if we have confidence to do that. So remember you have that within you and that you're not alone. If ever that feels hard to tap into, reach out. If not to a mentor, to a friend, to a colleague, find your tribe, find the people around you who are going to big you up and support you.
Is there a question I should have asked you but didn't?
I can't think of anything, no. I think we've had a good old rambling chat. Feels good.
What would be the question that you would want me to ask from the next person I'm interviewing?
Oh, okay. Sometimes I wonder if we learn from when it doesn't work, don't we, as well as when it does. So maybe there's something about, can you think of a time when you were mentored or a time when you mentored that didn't go so well and why? What's that about?
Can you remember a time when you were mentored and they didn't work? What didn't work? And why?
So in my experience, and this often comes up in one of the mentoring groups that I'm involved in, I do some work with early career academic, so women scientists, in a fantastic program called Sustain, run by the Academy of Medical Sciences, and they have mentor support. The one thing that will come up repeatedly that participants will say when mentoring hasn't worked in their previous experience, it's been when somebody tells you what to do. And that would certainly be the case for me, being told what to do in any kind of setting, in a development setting. And that's back to this whole model of do it the way I did it is not a good mentoring conversation. What I learned from when I did this in my past was how do we help somebody to take responsibility for their own growth and development and make their own choices, rather than give them what we think are the answers that probably won't fit because they're our answers, not theirs, and will actually disengage them from the mentoring process because that's not where they've come from.
And that's one of the strengths of Mentors for Women.
Indeed.
Thank you, Sam.
So much.